Over the last week, the Kraken showed that they can play up to and even beat some of the league's best teams. But if they want to continue to get this season turned around, they're also going to have to avoid playing down to the bad teams and win those games as well. So could they get on the right track tonight against the Sabres? Turns out they could. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome to Kraken R&R, where for the fourth time in 5 games, we have a Seattle Kraken win. And even more importantly, after tonight and the way the Kraken have been playing lately, there might still be some life left in this season. Even if there really isn't any left in the Seahawks season, but we're just here for the good things. Speaking of which, if you are into other Seattle sports, it was actually a pretty good day for the Mariners as well, as they pick up Robbie Ray, the reigning AL Cy Young winner. So, yeah, things are starting to happen in Marinerland as well. Figures it's right as the Seahawks fall apart, but again, we're here for the Kraken. For the Kraken, they continue their road trip, this time in Buffalo, for their second and final meeting with the Sabres on the season, having won the previous meeting in Seattle 5-1, which you might remember was the game that Jordan Eberle scored that first hat trick, and also turned out to be the last win before that 6-game losing streak. So here's to hoping that this win doesn't lead to another one of those losing streaks, but at least for now, everything's good in Krakenland. Except for maybe with Eberle, but we'll get to that. As far as the lineup's concerned, there's 2 main things of note here. One, it's a second start in a row for Driedger, who definitely earned it after his performance in Florida, but I still don't think this has much to do with Grubauer and whether or not he has a chance of losing his starting spot. I think it just has more to do with the fact that Grubauer got way more work than they were probably planning on giving him at the start of the season because of the Driedger injury, so this is a chance for them to, on a road trip, give him a little bit more rest. Plus, if, as the season goes along, we do get a little bit more of a tandem between Grubauer and Driedger like we were expecting at the start of the season, then being able to have Driedger play a couple games in a row and string a couple wins together is an important thing to see out of him. And then the second thing being that this was also a second start in a row for Will Borgen, who also earned this second chance after his performance in Florida, but it also definitely makes sense considering this was his revenge game, returning to the home of the team that he was picked from in the expansion draft. Of course, he never really played all that much for Buffalo, but it still is the franchise he was with for the first couple of seasons of his career, so I'm sure there's still something there anyway. As the game gets started, Seattle starts off with a lot of control and time in the offensive zone, but they just can't really get any chances out of it or even shots off on net. And eventually, the first real scoring chance of the game comes for Buffalo about 4 minutes in as they finally get a shot off on goal. Fortunately, Driedger is able to make both the save and the save off the rebound to keep the game scoreless. And then shortly after that, Fleury takes a somewhat questionable tripping call, but I'm not going to complain too much because 15 seconds into the Buffalo power play, Gord on the forecheck steals the puck from Dahlin behind the Sabres net, passes it out to Susie as he's coming into the zone, and he snipes it into the net over the glove hand of Tokarski, and the Kraken have their first ever shorthanded goal, and it's a 1-0 Kraken lead early in the first period. Man, this really does feel better than the other way around. And to add the icing on the cake for the Kraken penalty kill, even though there is no icing when you're on the penalty kill, sorry, with some help from Driedger, the Kraken are able to kill off the remaining time on this Buffalo power play, and it's still 1-0 Seattle. After some back and forth for a few minutes, which does feature chances at both ends of the ice, Donato does actually trip somebody this time, and Buffalo is going to get a second chance at the power play. Or is it Seattle who's going to get the second chance at the penalty kill? It takes a whole 25 seconds into this power play for Tanev to steal the puck at the Kraken blue line, once again from Dahlin, who he fights with all the way down the ice, fighting through what would have been a penalty on Dahlin, to get the shot off on net, which is saved, but the rebound comes back to Tanev, and he puts it off Dahlin's back end into the net for the second goal of the game. It's a second shorthanded goal in the Kraken's history, a second shorthanded goal in this period, and this one was all Tanev. It's 2-0 Seattle. It's turbo time, baby! Seattle is also able to kill off the rest of this Buffalo power play successfully, at which point the Buffalo crowd starts to, let's just say, express a little frustration with what they're seeing on the ice. Although what really ends up pushing them over the edge comes as we finish out the first period with a minute left when Alexiak fires a bomb from the blue line off a geeky pass. Tokarski is able to make the easy save as he sees it coming all the way. The rebound, however, goes right to McCann, who says, "Thank you very much," and puts it into the net to make it 3-0 Seattle, and the Boo Birds are out in full force. And for what it's worth, if there are any of you Sabres fans watching this, believe me, I'm a Mariners fan. I get it. I know I mentioned at the beginning how it looks like things could actually be getting better for the Mariners, but it's been 20 years without the playoffs, and they've wasted Ichiro and Felix's career among others, so yeah, it's been painful. Getting back to the game though, the good news for the Sabres at this point, even though they are down 3-0 after one, is that coming up is the start of another period, which historically has not been something the Kraken have been able to handle all that well. And sure enough, coming out of the gates in the second, things do not go well for the Kraken once again. Less than 2 minutes into the period, a puck bounces off the boards behind the Kraken net like it's a trampoline, and right back next to the net for Brett Murray, who looks down, says, "Ooh, piece of candy," and gets it into the net before Drieger can recover. It's now 3-1 Buffalo. And quickly after that goal, Drieger has to make a couple of pretty nice saves to get across the crease and stop wraparound chances to keep the Kraken at a 2-goal lead as we get deeper into the period. Eventually, the Kraken are able to wake up a bit, and they start to get momentum back in their favor, getting some shots off on net and creating chances back on the other end. Best of which comes about 8 minutes into the period when once again it's Tanev with a nice play to drive the puck up the ice, eventually passing to Geeky in the offensive zone, though the pass is broken up and sent to the end boards, where Geeky is able to pick it up and shovel a nice backhand one-handed pass out front to a crashing McCann, who's wide open having gotten lost in the defense, and he buries it into the net. It's his second of the game. It's 4-1 Kraken, and for McCann, his 10th on the season. He's in double digits right alongside Eberle. And once again, just like the last McCann goal, it's another type of play that we've seen a fair amount in this Kraken season already, just not a whole lot of times in the Kraken's favor, as McCann gets completely lost in the defense and left all alone right in front of the goal, putting Tokarski in a pretty much impossible situation. Later on, with about 3.5 minutes left in the second period, the Kraken penalty kill will get a chance to make it 3-for-3, and I'll let you decide whether that means scoring goals shorthanded or just killing off a penalty, as either would apply. Unfortunately, whether it was because this penalty wasn't due to a tripping call like the previous two were, or something else that actually makes some kind of sense, the Kraken aren't able to do either, as Buffalo doesn't give up a goal and is able to score one of their own on the power play. It's Jeff Skinner who makes it 4-2. And seconds later, as the Buffalo Stadium announcer is excitedly announcing the Buffalo goal, the lamp lights up again. Happily though, this time it's the one behind the Buffalo net, as a shot from Borgen leads to some hack and whack time in front of the net, as Forsland would call it, and eventually it's Appleton who finishes it off, getting his first in a Kraken uniform. And now all they need to do is get Donskoy one. Like, really need to get him one. I mean, how does this guy not have a goal yet? It's starting to get ridiculous. But at least for now, it's celebration time for this goal, which makes it 5-2 Kraken. And to make it even better, it's Borgen who gets the primary apple on the Appleton goal, which is not only his first point in a Kraken uniform, but actually his first point of his NHL career. And of course, it comes against the team that he was with for the last 2 seasons. Or at least franchise anyway. Again, he's spent a lot of time in the AHL. And the score would stay 5-2 into the second intermission. However, what that also means is that what comes next is another start of another new period, which, again, is good news for the Sabres. And for the Kraken, once again, the third period does not get off to a very good start whatsoever, as just 37 seconds in, a really bad turnover by Alexiak, and I mean really bad, ends up into the back of the net off of Skinner's stick, his second goal of the game. And this one, yeah, it's on Alexiak. It's now 5-3 with the Sabres once again pulling to within 2. And just a minute later, it's another Buffalo power play. The good news is the Kraken are able to kill this one off successfully, even if they don't score another shorthanded goal. But the bad news that we also get on the broadcast at the same time is that Eberle has not returned to the bench for the third period and won't be returning to the game with a lower body injury, likely an ankle that he looked like he twisted in the middle of the second. Of course, with him being the Kraken's leading scorer at the moment, That's definitely not what you want to see. For pretty much the remainder of the third period, which still at this point is pretty much all of it, things are starting to look pretty turtly on the Kraken side as they are really just trying to play defense as much as possible, and when they do get the puck, largely just choosing to chip it down towards the other end and go off and get a change, really not trying all that hard to carry it into the offensive zone and establish pressure there. Which is definitely a bit frustrating to watch, not only because the Sabres end up getting at least the first 6 shots of the period, including one that goes off a post past Drieger, but also because they still just have a 2-goal lead in a game where they were getting plenty of chances in the offensive zone earlier on when they were actually bothering to play some offense. Eventually, though, it does have to be said that the turtle strategy ends up paying off for the Kraken, although I'm not entirely convinced it wasn't in spite of it. But either way, Donskoy makes a very nice defensive play on the back check to save what would have been a good scoring chance for the Sabres, and it turns into a 3-on-2 the other way for the Kraken that sees a nice passing play end with Gord dropping it for a wide open Schwartz, who buries it into the back of the net to get the Kraken back into a 3-goal lead. And at this point, it does feel like even with the turtle strategy and a few more shots on Drieger, the Kraken are going to be able to ice this one away. And for Donskoy, while it does still seem like hell might have to freeze over before he can get his first goal for the Kraken, he does at least get his 10th assist on the season on this goal from Schwartz. As we get towards the end of the game, with just a minute and a half left, a Dylan Cousins tip on an Okposo shot gets just enough for it to glance off of Drieger and slowly roll across the line before he can lean back and get his glove on it. And I mean, of course this would happen, especially considering earlier in the game, a very similar type of situation saw a puck slowly rolling towards the Buffalo line behind their goalkeeper. Admittedly, quite a bit slower, but they were able to get to that one as it was on the red line before it could get in. So of course, finally one rolls past a goaltender, it's on Seattle. At this point, with Buffalo once again down just 2 goals, they do decide to pull their goaltender, though it will be Appleton who eventually finds the empty net for his second goal of the game and second goal as a Kraken, to finish this one off as the Kraken win 7-4, finishing off the season series sweep, which makes Buffalo the first team the Kraken do that to, as well as being the first time the Kraken score 7 or more goals in a game. With the game as a whole, it's another good win for the Kraken as they continue to play well in all aspects of the game, continuing to build off of that momentum that they built up over the last 4 games. Really, the only complaint I would have with this one is that they were maybe a little too content to sit on their heels in the third period with a multi-goal lead, where I think they could have kept the pressure on and maybe even made this one feel a little bit less tight by the end of it. Either way, it's hard to complain too much about a 3-goal win, and the Kraken have now won 4 of the last 5. McCann ends up getting the first star of the game with his 2 goals, and Tanev gets, I think, a very well-deserved second star with a goal and 2 assists on the night. Actually, you know what? Getting back to how the team played as a whole for a second, I do want to shine a little bit more of a light on one aspect of the Kraken game. And no, it actually isn't the penalty kill and getting those 2 first shorthanded goals in franchise history. It's actually the passing. Now, I still think they did have very good passing in the Carolina, DC, and Florida wins. They probably wouldn't have been able to win those games without it, but I thought it was able to really shine through and show up much more in this game than in any of those. Of course, some of that could have to do with the quality of the opponent they were playing, but the passing from the Kraken in this one was beautiful and crisp all game long, save for maybe that Alexiak turnover at the start of the third that led to the goal. But either way, there was a lot of tape-to-tape passing and really nice passing plays that the Kraken were able to make happen, a couple of which led to goals that honestly, I don't think would have happened with the way this team had been playing at the early part of the season and really before this last stretch of games. The second McCann goal and especially the Schwartz one at the end of the game in particular. So now with the defense playing well, or at the very least much better, the goaltending finally starting to show up, and the passing looking, frankly, NHL level, which it didn't necessarily at points early on in the season, this team is really hitting its stride, and we'll see if they can continue it on Wednesday night against another beatable team, although a team that has gotten off to a pretty good start with some exciting young players in the Detroit Red Wings. Until then, as always, I'd love to see your comments on this game and how you thought the Kraken played against a, well, frankly, lesser opponent than the last 4 that they've faced. and a game that, if they are going to get this season turned around, they need to be winning. Which, of course, they do. With that, though, we will reach the end of this one, so if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below that, as always, I would appreciate you using to help support the channel. And until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and go Kraken!